George was bored. History class was always so boring. Today they were learning about presidents. It wasn't exactly the most exciting topic for a 10-year-old. George would much rather be outside playing kickball or building a fort. Suddenly, George had an idea. A really big idea. It just popped into his head, like popcorn in the microwave. What if I ran for president? He thought. The idea seemed crazy even to him, but the more he thought about it, the more he liked it. George wasn't a big fan of homework, and he thought kids should get more recess. If I were president, he thought, things would be different. He imagined the White House with a giant slide coming out of the Oval Office and a bouncy castle on the front lawn. The thought made him giggle. He knew adults would probably laugh at his idea, but George didn't care. He was going to run for president, and he was going to win. George knew he needed a campaign slogan, something catchy, something kids would get behind. He thought long and hard. He scribbled ideas on a piece of paper. Free pizza Fridays, no more bedtimes. Then it hit him. 2 words that were music to every kid's ears. More recess, less homework. George knew he had struck gold. He plastered his slogan on posters. He even convinced his mom to iron it onto a t-shirt. His parents thought the whole thing was adorable. They didn't really take him seriously. They thought it was just a phase. But George was serious. He was determined to make a difference. He wanted to be the voice of kids everywhere. News of George's campaign spread like wildfire. It started small, whispers in the school hallways. Then it exploded. Local news picked it up. Then national news. Soon everyone was talking about the 10-year-old running for president. George's campaign was unconventional, to say the least. He held rallies at the local park, with free ice cream cones for everyone. He debated his opponents, mostly grown-up politicians, on talk shows, where he charmed the pants off everyone with his honesty and wit. When asked about his foreign policy, George simply said, "I think we should all just be friends." His response went viral. People loved his simple, straightforward approach. He wasn't a politician. He was just a kid with a big heart and even bigger dreams. Adults were drawn to George's infectious optimism. In a world that often felt cynical and divided, here was a kid who believed in the power of kindness and imagination. He reminded them of what truly mattered. He reminded them of the joy of childhood. George's message resonated with people from all walks of life. He wasn't concerned with political parties or ideologies. He just wanted everyone to have fun and be nice to each other. And in a world that often felt too serious, his message was a breath of fresh air. George's secret weapon? His honesty? He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't. He was just himself, a 10-year-old who wanted to make the world a better place. He spoke from the heart. He told people what he believed in, and people listened. They could see that he was genuine. He wasn't trying to fool anyone. He was just being George. Election day arrived. The whole country held its breath. Could a 10-year-old actually become president? The answer was a resounding yes. George had done it. He had won the election. He was officially the youngest president in U.S. history. The country erupted in celebration. Kids were ecstatic. They had finally found someone who understood them. Adults were cautiously optimistic. Maybe, just maybe, this kid could shake things up for the better. George, true to form, took it all in stride. He was excited, of course, but he was also a little nervous. Being president was a big job, but he was ready for the challenge. Section 5, the Oval Office Makeover. The first order of business? Redecorating the Oval Office, of course. Out with the old, stuffy furniture. In with beanbag chairs, a giant TV screen for video games, and a fully stocked snack bar. George wanted the White House to be a place where kids felt welcome. He replaced the presidential limo with a giant ice cream truck. He installed a slip and slide in the Rose Garden, and he turned the White House lawn into a massive playground, complete with swings, a jungle gym, and a bouncy castle the size of Texas. George's parents were a little overwhelmed by it all, but they couldn't have been prouder. They knew their son was special. He had a gift for bringing people together. And now, he was using that gift to make the world a happier, more playful place. The adults in charge were a little flustered at first, but they soon learned to adapt to George's way of doing things. They had to admit, it was kind of refreshing having a president who wasn't afraid to have fun. Section 6. President George's first day. On his first day in office, President George issued a series of executive orders that would change the course of history. First, he declared that every Friday would be National Pizza Day. Second, he mandated a 2-hour recess for all schools, elementary through high school. Third, and most importantly, he abolished homework. Forever. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Kids across the country rejoiced. Pizza sales skyrocketed. Recess became the highlight of the school day, and parents everywhere breathed a sigh of relief, no longer having to argue with their kids about finishing their math problems. George's policies were a breath of fresh air. He tackled the issues that mattered most to kids, and in doing so, he reminded adults of the simple joys of childhood. He showed them that sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. His approval rating soared to unprecedented heights. He was the most popular president in history. Even people who disagreed with his policies couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm and his genuine desire to make the world a better place. Section 7. Pizza parties and playground politics. George's presidency was anything but ordinary. He held cabinet meetings on the jungle gym, conducted diplomatic negotiations over games of tag, and signed international treaties with crayons, because crayons are way more fun than pens. He invited world leaders to play dodgeball on the White House lawn. He replaced boring state dinners with giant pizza parties. And he solved a major international conflict by convincing the leaders involved to share a giant chocolate chip cookie. George's approach to leadership was unorthodox, but it was effective. He proved that you don't need to be a grown-up to make a difference in the world. In fact, sometimes it's better to see the world through the eyes of a child. His youthful perspective brought a fresh approach to old problems. He wasn't bogged down by cynicism or bureaucracy. He was optimistic, energetic, and always willing to try new things. And that's what made him such an effective leader. Section 8. The importance of being earnest, and 10. Not everyone agreed with George's policies, of course. Some people thought he was being irresponsible. They argued that running a country was serious business, not a game. But George didn't listen to the naysayers. He knew in his heart that he was doing the right thing. He believed that everyone, no matter their age, deserved to be heard. He believed that everyone had something valuable to contribute. And he believed that the world would be a better place if we all just remembered to be a little kinder, a little more playful, and a little more like kids. George's presidency was a reminder that sometimes the best leaders are the ones who are willing to think outside the box, the ones who aren't afraid to be silly, the ones who lead with their hearts, not just their heads. He showed the world that leadership isn't about age or experience. It's about passion, integrity, and a genuine desire to make a difference. And those are qualities that can be found in people of all ages. George's presidency taught the world some valuable lessons. Lessons about the importance of imagination, the power of kindness, and the need to approach life with a sense of wonder and playfulness. He reminded everyone that it's okay to be silly sometimes, that it's okay to make mistakes, and that it's never too late to make the world a better place. Adults began to see the world through a different lens. They started playing more, laughing more, and appreciating the simple things in life. They learned that it's okay to not take themselves too seriously all the time. And they realized that sometimes the best solutions are the ones that come from the hearts and minds of children. George's presidency was a wake-up call. It made people realize that they had become too caught up in the seriousness of life. They had forgotten how to have fun. They had forgotten the importance of play. George reminded them of what truly mattered. He showed them that it's possible to be both playful and responsible, silly and serious. He taught them that it's okay to embrace your inner child, no matter how old you are. After 4 glorious years, George's term as president came to an end. He returned to his normal life, going back to school, hanging out with his friends, and being a regular kid again. But things were different now. He had changed the world, and the world had changed him. He wasn't just George anymore, he was President George, the kid who had dared to dream big and made everyone believe that anything was possible. He knew that his time in the White House was over, but his work was far from done. He went back to school with a renewed sense of purpose. He wanted to share the lessons he had learned as president with his classmates. He wanted to inspire them to make a difference in the world, no matter how small. His time as president had given him a platform, a voice that could be heard around the world, and he wasn't going to let that voice go to waste. George's presidency was a turning point in history. It marked a shift in consciousness, a recognition that children have a valuable perspective that deserves to be heard. It showed the world that leadership can come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. Adults learned to listen to the children in their lives. They started paying attention to their ideas, their hopes, their dreams. They realized that children are not just the future, but also the present, and that their voices matter. George's story became a beacon of hope for a generation. It showed that anything is possible if you dare to dream big and work hard to make those dreams a reality. It taught the world that laughter, kindness, and a little bit of silliness can go a long way. The world had been changed for the better, thanks to the vision and leadership of a 10-year-old boy named George. Years later, people still remembered George's presidency fondly. They remembered the laughter, the joy, the sense of hope that he had brought to the world. They told stories about the kid president who had dared to do things differently, who had reminded them of the importance of play, and who had shown them that anything is possible. George grew up, of course. He went to college, pursued his passions, and continued to make a difference in the world, always carrying with him the lessons he had learned during his extraordinary time in the White House. But the legend of President George lived on, inspiring generations to come. Statues were erected in his honor, depicting him with a mischievous grin and a twinkle in his eye. Schools and parks were named after him, places where children could play freely and let their imaginations soar. The boy who had dared to run for president on a platform of more recess, less homework, had left an indelible mark on the world, reminding everyone that sometimes the smallest voices can spark the biggest changes.